Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to have a look at another brewery who I have never tried anything from before, and I think this beer will be really quite interesting actually, because this is my native beer style and you don't find too many of these brewed over here. So for this review then we are going to go to Sundsvall, which is about halfway up the east coast of Sweden, home to the Sweden Rock Festival if I'm not mistaken, and we're having a look at my first beer from Bryggeriet Stenhammaren. So this one is the wee heavy. It comes in at 7.4% ABV, and as the name kind of suggests, it is a Scotch ale. So I'm really curious to see whether this is more of an American style Scotch ale or whether it is a little bit more like our traditional ones. And the main reason that it makes me curious is the fact that they call it a wee heavy, because this is a term that was coined by the Americans when they started brewing this beer style. Their versions of this beer tend to be a little bit more sweet, brown sugary and kind of red fruity, whereas the traditional Scottish ones, the fruits are a little bit darker, the brown sugars are a little bit more toasty, and yeah, it's just generally a kind of darker beer if you like, and they don't tend to be as strong in alcohol either actually, which is usually interesting. But the whole shilling thing comes from the tax system that these beers used to have. So you had the 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80 and 90 shilling beers. The higher you went up the shilling scale, the more alcohol it had, the more malt content it had, therefore you had to pay more tax, and that is how you get the whole 80, 90 sort of thing. The wee heavies that the Americans refer to tend to be sort of 80 and 90 shillings, sometimes 70s of course. But yeah, an interesting little point there. But this is only the third Scotch ale that I've had from here in Sweden. I think I had the Nils Oscar one a number of years back. I've also had the 12, if I remember the number rightly, one of the anniversary beers from Eskilstuna Ölkultur, and then this is the third one as far as I can remember. So hopefully it turns out to be nice. Hopefully this is a good introduction to Bryggeriet Stenhammaren, and I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's see how we get on. So as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I'll do in the future from Bryggeriet Stenhammaren. Very first time I'm trying one of their beers, of course. There's all the usual social media down there as well. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to whenever I get the opportunity, which is pretty much all the time. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Bryggeriet Stenhammaren then. So Bryggeriet Stenhammaren, as I mentioned to you, are based in Sundsvall on the east coast of Sweden, about halfway up the country. It looks as if it's about maybe 3 hours or so to the north of Uppsala, about 4 to the north of Stockholm, something like that. But the brewery itself was founded back in 2012 by the brothers Peter, Joel and Oscar de Waal, along with Krista Stelsred. So the three brothers had always been interested in beer, and they began home brewing together and just, dreamed of starting their own brewery. They just kind of did it for a bit of a hobby and, to have something to do together. And their father Per had also been involved at Box Distillery, one of the kind of 5 or 6 whiskey distilleries that there are in Sweden now. So the whole kind of thing about, artisanal alcohol tasting and things had been quite prominent in their family from what I gather. Krista, on the other hand, has a long experience of the alcohol industry. He's been involved in things for about 30, 40 years, and he ran the Irish pub in Sundsvall for years before starting to brew his own beer. And he's also involved at Alsta Brewery as well, and I think I might have reviewed one of their beers at one point if I remember correctly, because I do recognise that name. But over the years they've gradually built up their sales, and they've got the capacity now to brew around 100,000 litres of beer per year, but I don't think they are brewing kind of near that amount, because the brewery is still very small. Most of their beers are sold within the local area. I think it's quite recently that they've started canning the beers as well, but the brewery itself is named after a district in Sundsvall that was known for brothels, but today it's become quite a thriving part of the city, having kind of turned its reputation around for being a place for like alcohol, booze, sex and all of these kind of things. But as of May 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced around 45 different types of beer. So yeah, that was all the information I was able to find on this brewery. There really wasn't very much available on these guys at all, to be honest with you. I looked through local papers, I looked at beernews.se and things like that, but that was all that I was able to find, even searching the different founders' names and things like that didn't turn up too much. But yeah, that's it. So if you want to learn more about this brewery, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. You can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages too to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then and see what we have here. So yeah, this one, it's kind of, the artwork on this one is very kind of straightforward, but I think it's you know, it's quite tasteful. There you can see the old houses and stuff like this. I wondered when I was looking at the badge if it was, you know, something to do with the coastline and stuff like that, because there are a few wee islands and stuff around around the Sundsvall area. So I wondered if it, when I first looked at it, I thought it was like a little map of the coastline or something, but no, it's actually little houses sitting on top of that. So I don't know if the three houses is supposed to symbolise the three brothers involved at the brewery or what, but yeah, you know, kind of cool actually this one. So yeah, it says best before the 30th of January 2022, reading the date wrong, but yeah, 7.4% ABV won this. We'll need to comment in the tasting as to whether this is like a 60, 70 or 80, 90 shilling, you know, we need to comment where on the scale this one might be. But yeah, 330ml can, this one, and I think it was actually fairly cheap as well. I think I paid about 35 kroners or something for this, so it wasn't too expensive. But this one was released on the was it the 1st of April 2020, early April anyway, through the local and Småskoligt assortment in Systembolaget. And as I say, my native beer style, not one that you find brewed too often in Sweden. Apparently this brewery, they say that they focus on, they call it British style beers, but they've got a few Belgian things in there as well, which should be quite interesting. And you get some interesting fruity notes off of this straight away as you open up. It smells very candied actually. So yeah, let's have a look at this then. So yeah, as you can see with this beer, if I hold the light up to this, it's a very, to you on the camera, this will be appearing like a very, very dark, sort of chestnutty mahogany type colour, but if I shine the light through this one, it really has, it's quite woody and chestnutty at the top and mahogany like, but then further down it's definitely got more of a very ruby tinge to it. One or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, quite a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, and yeah, the head, as you can see, it was about a quarter finger of a frothy, I would say medium beige head, and that's just fading away to be you know, a very light, thin kind of foamy layer. But yeah, one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, a few little ones going up towards the bottom of the head there, but overall it looks pretty nice. So when it comes to the colour of this one, it is pretty much in the right range, to be honest with you. Some of them can be a little bit lighter than this, a bit more leaning towards that chestnutty side of things. This one's definitely got more of that kind of stained mahogany character to it. I have seen ones that are even darker than this, to be honest with you as well. So yeah, it definitely looks the part. Nothing overly surprising about this beer in terms of its appearance, but yeah, definitely looks the part for a Scotch ale. And usually the thing that will affect the colour of these beers is what type of malts have been used, and also how long the boil is, because the longer that you do the boil, of course, the more caramelised the sugars become and the darker the colour of the beer actually gets. So yeah, that's quite interesting for this one. So let's have a look at the aroma then, and just and see how we get on with this beer. That actually smells very nice, I have to say. Promising signs so far. This is a style that I am hard to impress with, by the way, but I've got high hopes for this one based on the aroma. It definitely leans more towards that American side of things in terms of the aroma. It's very well balanced. It's quite well balanced actually between the fruity side of things and the more malty side of it, come to think of it. So yeah, straight away with this one, underneath you can smell a bit of that kind of brown sugar. It actually comes across as very, very sweet. The fruits in this one I find are quite prominent, and that you know, the Scotch ale, that's the unusual thing about the aroma here. The fruits are very, very prominent, and normally you would expect the malts to be a good bit more kind of prominent than they are in this sort of style of beer. But you know, I'm sure that it probably will kind of rebalance itself in the taste, if you like. But underneath this one, you can definitely smell a little bit of that kind of brown bready note. There is definitely some of that. There's a bit of a kind of treacly, you know, there is a bit of that kind of treacly molasses sort of thing. Those really highly caramelised brown sugars, and the brown bread just kind of mixes in with that. You do get a little bit of a lighter, sweeter caramel as well. You also get a bit of a lighter kind of biscuity quality coming out of this beer too. And it's almost got a wee bit of a kind of butterscotchy Werther's Original type quality to it as well, which I do like. So yeah, there is an element of a kind of phenolic note about this. There is a wee bit of that kind of phenolic quality that you'll get from the likes of a Belgian Dubel or something like that out of it, and that I think is a little bit unusual for a Scotch ale, to be honest. You don't tend to get so much kind of phenolic note out of it. But I will say the malty side of it and the way the fruits come out is very, very nice and pretty much kind of what you would expect. Yeah, I like how that goes together. Lovely bit of brown bread, lovely bit of kind of dark, well-fired kind of treacly molasses sugars out of it. Some of the sweeter notes on top of that. Little bit of there is almost a little touch of a nuttiness to this beer as well, in fairness. And then a few kind of woody undertones to it as well. So the more and more you smell of this malt base, the sweeter it becomes, and it really starts to lean. It's got a bit of the darker things that you'd expect from a Scottish brewed Scotch ale, but it really starts, the more and more that you smell this, the more it starts to lean towards that American end of the spectrum. In terms of the hoppy side of things, you've got a little bit of earthiness in there, wee touch of floral character and a little bit of light grassiness. I mean, the Scotch ales are not the most hoppy style of beers. I mean, it's probably Kent Goldings or something like that, or maybe a bit of Bramling's Cross that's in this. It's definitely, I'm pretty sure it's English hops that have been used in this, because that's what they use traditionally. I don't think it's the stronger American ones like Williamette or anything. It could, the other thing it could be is Northern Brewer, which is very popular in Doppelbox. But yeah, definitely some nice red fruity notes out of this. It's interesting. I'd be curious to know what yeast they've used for this too. But yeah, on the hoppy side of things, like I say, not too much to report, just a little bit of a herbal, florally type note, a bit of light grass, and then a wee bit of a light earthiness as well. But on the fruity side of things, as I was saying earlier, there's quite a bit of a phenolic quality to this one. It's a little bit like a sort of cough syrupy medicinal type thing. Almost a little bit cakey in some regards, like a kind of rum cake or Christmas pudding type thing. It's almost got a little bit of that vibe to it. But yeah, some kind of cherry and plummy notes to this one. A little bit of a lighter, juicier fig in there, maybe some raisiny sharpness, and you've also got a wee bit of a kind of blackcurranty, blackberry quality there as well. But to me it really leans towards that kind of cherry, plummy sort of thing, and the kind of cakey quality as well. It really is quite a phenolic smelling beer, this one, and a little bit sharp the further you go into the aroma with it as well. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the aroma of this one then. Take a bit of time and just enjoy it for yourself before you get stuck into it. But we're going to try this now and just see how we get on. So this one is the Wee Heavy, coming in at 7.4%. I think only my third Scotch ale, if I remember correctly, from Bryggeriet Stenhammaren in Sundsvall, up kind of in Norrland, halfway up the east coast of Sweden. I'm really curious about this. Let's get stuck in. Slange Skål. Yeah, it's quite interesting. Actually, it leans more towards, it does lean more towards the kind of traditional type of this style rather than the American one. It does have a few American elements to it in the aroma, as I said to you, but in terms of the flavour profile, it's definitely leaning towards the that kind of Scottish brewed Scotch ale, if that makes sense. So yeah, it is actually quite well done, I have to say. The key difference I noticed between this and the actual Scottish one, and it might just be because of how far north this one's brewed, you can really taste this. It feels very, very clean, whereas and I think it must just be the water quality they've got up there, but it feels very, very clean, this beer, which is interesting. But I like it. I do like this one. This gets a thumbs up from me. I wouldn't hesitate to drink this again. I'd love to try it on tap and just see how it comes across if it's a little bit thicker. I've always found that on tap beer is just a little bit thicker, because in the can it really feels very clean and really quite wet in its mouthfeel. Not that there's anything really wrong with that, but it would be interesting just to see how this beer would be with a slightly thicker mouthfeel. But in terms of its flavour profile, it's got it pretty much. It has it. It really does have it. At 7.4%, I mean, it is probably sitting around the kind of 80, sort of 80 shilling mark, if you like. I think, yeah, 80, maybe 90 shilling. It is one of the stronger ones. I've seen Scotch ales that were brewed, you know, you can get them brewed at all different things, of course, but I think to get a good chunk of flavour out of these beers, they really have to be sort of 80 or 90 shillings. You do have to brew these around the sort of 7.5% mark. It's one of these beer styles where I think you either, you know, you go big with it or you go home, you know, do it properly or don't do it. And I think these guys have taken that approach. They have gone for a good alcohol strength with this beer, and it's turned out quite nicely. So yeah, thumbs up to Stenhammaren for this. This is good. The only strange thing, as I say, is that it feels so clean. It doesn't feel quite as thick as the ones that we would drink back home. But again, that might be due to conditioning or whatever. So you can, you know, you can let that slide. But yeah, let's try and break down the flavour of this one then and see how we get on. So straight away with this beer, you can feel a nice little bit of graininess. That blankets the middle of the palate. But on top of that, then you really start to get the brown sugars. You can feel that the brown sugars are quite toasty. Going by the flavour of this beer, it's obviously had quite a long boil, maybe about 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, something like that, because you can really feel the sort of treacly, molassesy type notes pushing their way out of this one. So, you know, that's not surprising at all. So quite a long boil beer, I think, this one. But yeah, so you do get a nice little bit, as I say, the treacly molasses notes, that just sits on top of the kind of grainy note. You do get that kind of brown bready quality just blanketing, sitting on top of that as well. And as you go further back on the palate, you get almost a bit more of a kind of toasty, bread crusty note out of this one. But then in the middle of the palate, you do start to get the kind of thicker, more oily, brown sugary notes there. It doesn't quite reach the levels of sweet caramel until you go really almost very much into the centre of the palate. There's a few little butterscotchy Werther's Original type notes out of this one, which is quite nice. But you also have, you know, you also have a little bit of, you do also have a little bit of that kind of biscuity note to the beer. You do get a little bit more graininess out of it the further you go into the aftertaste. So it really is kind of, the malt base in this one really is in layers for me, actually. So yeah, I like how this, I do like how this goes together. You can feel as you go further into the aftertaste with this one, it does dry out a little bit and you get some nice kind of toasty sort of, toasty kind of grainy notes pushing their way out of this beer. So I really like how that all goes together. I think this is, it's got a nice balance between the kind of drier, more roasty thing that you expect of the Scotch ale, the big thick brown sugars, and you've also got a little bit of sweetness there. The sweetness, of course, really covers up the kind of boozy side of the beer. But so yeah, the malt base in this is pretty nice. It comes out in a different way from what you might expect from a kind of traditional Scotch ale, but I do like what it has going on here. So again, thumbs up from me. On the hoppy side of things, it's what you'd expect. The back corners of the palate, you've got a little bit of earthiness there. As you come further forward from that, it's got a little bit of a kind of herbally quality. As you reach the front corners of the palate, there's a little bit of floral note in there. Definitely a kind of English hoppy type quality to this one. And as you go round the front curve of the palate, it's just a little bit lighter and grassy. I do think that it's probably Bramling's Cross that's been used in this one. I would reckon that it probably is Bramling's Cross, maybe with a little bit of a northern brewer from Germany as well. But yeah, interesting about that. But yeah, the fruity side of things then. So as I always say, on the kind of front third of your tongue, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer. When you take this one in, it actually does have almost a little bit of sharpness to it, like a plummy sort of cherry raisiny kind of sharpness. You do get that sort of thing out of it. But the further you go into the aftertaste, you can really feel this almost cakey flavour evolving out of this one. I was talking about it being a bit like Christmas pudding. It gets drier. The further you go into the aftertaste, as I say, it gets drier. But really, you get that plummy, raisiny kind of thing there. On the front third of your tongue, you get a nice kind of juicy figgy note, and as you reach the very tip of your palate, it gets a sort of, you know, it gets a little bit of a kind of blackcurranty, blackberry sort of thing coming out of it. So yeah, you know, it has got that blackberry, blackcurranty sort of thing the further you go, but you really feel, once the juicy fruitiness kind of fades away, you really do feel behind that fruity part of your palate, it's very, you know, it's very, you know, it has got a good bit of a well-fired type quality to it. It's got a bit of a well-fired thing to it, and then you get a few of those kind of cakey notes underneath it. So yeah, I like how that aspect of the beer comes out. It has got a little bit of that kind of winter warmery type vibe to it. But yeah, I think this one is pretty authentic. Like I say, I think I would place this somewhere. I think I'd place this around the 80 shilling mark. They've got the kind of the way that the brown sugars and the breadiness come out of this is pretty straight up. It's nicely done in that regard. So as I say, thumbs up to Bryggeriet Stenhammaren from me on this. Definitely one of the more, it leans a little bit towards the roasty toasty side of things. I don't know if there's a wee bit of, I think with the colour of it, I don't think there's any black malt in it, but maybe it's got a wee, maybe there's just a teeny touch of carafa or something like that in there. I wouldn't be surprised if there's just the teeniest little bit of carafa, just because of the way some of the well-fired bread crusty notes come out. But yeah, this is well done. In terms of the mouthfeel then, as I say, this is where this beer differs, because it feels very clean. So yeah, it's pretty mid-bodied. The carbonation is very smooth on this one. It's really quite a wet, very slick mouthfeel it has. In terms of hoppy bitterness, you've got a bit of grainy bitterness to this one as well, so maybe it's sitting around the 40-ish IBU mark. In fact, no, I don't think it's quite that. I think it's maybe about 25 or 30, in fairness. It's got a little bit of dryness in the middle of the palate. So yeah, that's the interesting point to make about this one. You've got a good bit of smoothness to the malt base, it dries out, and you've got a wee bit of a kind of sweetness there as well. But again, even the brown sugary notes are quite well fired and toasty in my mind. On the fruity side of things, it's quite a wet juiciness that this beer has actually. So that's the main thing to remember about this one. But overall, it's a very interesting beer, this one, and another nicely brewed Scotch ale here from Sweden. So yeah, thumbs up to Bryggeriet Stenhammaren again for this. This is a good effort in the style, and it just kind of goes to show you the quality of breweries that you've got here. This is another brewery that I hadn't heard of before, and then I've tried this and been quite impressed with it. I mean, I think there's about 450, maybe 500 Swedish breweries these days, and you know, quite often in the local and småskaligt you can find breweries like this that you've never heard of, and you will come across treats like this. So it just goes to show you the quality of the Swedish beer scene, in my opinion. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This is the Wee Heavy, a 7.4% Scotch ale. I think somewhere along the regions of an 80 shilling, from Bryggeriet Stenhammaren in Sundsvall, Norrland here in Sweden. This was nicely done, and I certainly enjoy this. Hopefully I could try Untappd sometime up there. I do need to go and explore the north of Sweden a little bit, so that's definitely something to do for the future. Maybe I'll do it one year when I'm at the Sweden Rock Festival or whatever. So yeah, let's leave it at that. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Bryggeriet Stenhammaren as well, and I will catch you guys very soon with more reviews. Thank you again for watching, and I'll catch you guys later. The Wee Heavy from Bryggeriet Stenhammaren in Sundsvall, Norrland, Sweden. Slanja, skål, cheers, make sure you check out this beer.